Yes, I will.
Yeah, we walked in
20
and they had an
seconds to
entire
live.
house set built in one of the film classes.
No, turn Skype down. We're going to bring him up after the thing. 15 seconds to live. Ready, VTR 1. Ready, black. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll. VTR 1 up. All right, just like normal, guys. Count me in, Thomas. I need it now. And
North Texas
Cue-
Mean Green.
cue Sarah.
Welcome into Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host, Sarah Baskin. Alongside
I
me
need to
tonight
anchor
are
all
Jack
threes.
Brown, Justin Blue, and Connor Hibbett. Fellas, how are we feeling this evening?
Great. That was an awesome
They're echoing off each other. Elisa.
It is. It's completely surreal, and I know we're all having a great
I don't
time.
have a rundown.
UNT, first NCAA tournament win in school history, upsetting Purdue 78-69. It's a fantastic evening. I know I was sweating the entire night, and we did it as only UNT can do it seems, in overtime. Justin, what are your initial thoughts tonight?
Well, I thought it was another game where it
Roll
all
UNT.
started with our defense. And I thought in the first half specifically, we really set the tone and the pace of that game with our defense. We handled everything that Purdue was throwing at us
Don't forget
in
there's
that
audio.
first half, and pretty much with ease. We only allowed 24 first half points against
They're
Purdue,
talking
and that
defense,
was
we're talking
one of their
offense.
lowest first half totals of the entire season. And it all started with guarding Travion Williams and Zach Edey. Those were the two guys last show that we said that we were going to have to match up to their size, because those guys were really big, and all season long it was Travion
Ben.
Williams that was their
Yeah,
leading
chance.
scorer.
Hit
Thomas
cut.
Bell did an outstanding job against
Get
Travion
Zach
Williams
over
that
there.
entire game, and sometimes he needed the help of Zach Simmons on the double teams, and sometimes he
Ben,
didn't.
can you iris
They held
Studio
Travion
B?
Williams to 2 points in that first half, and I thought that really set the tone for the rest of that game.
What do you think, Connor?
The whole entire game.
Well, Connor's
is
mic.
kinda surreal because you grow up watching all these
A little-
games in March Madness. And you
Turn
see
him down a
some
little
of
more.
these 13
Bring up
teams
Connor's mic a little.
And you're like, my
Roll
gosh,
VTR
obviously
one
it
with
must
the
feel great
highlights.
for the players, the coaching staff, but what must it feel like
He's really echoing.
for the student body? And for
get
me
that?
as a
Sounds like
UNT
it's great.
student, it's just an incredible, surreal moment because when you finally hear that final buzzer sound, you see UNT moving on to the next round, it's like, did this really just happen? And obviously, like Justin said, it started with the defense, and that's been UNT all season, and of course it had to go to overtime. But it was just a total surreal moment, and something
So
that I'm
you're gonna
going
have to really watch it.
for the rest of my life.
I 100% agree. It was one of those moments where you can't believe that you get to be.
Hey,
get to
Elisa,
be
you
a
gotta turn that
student
VTR one
fan.
music
I know
up.
a
We
lot
never
of us
had
are
that.
like Dallas Cowboys fans.
Or
They
Elisa's
let us
really
down every
quiet.
time.
Can you turn
It's
the
just
control
felt
room
really good
audio
to have
up?
a team that wasn't letting us down. Now I had full confidence and put them on my bracket. Actually had them going to Sweet 16. Jack, were you surprised at all?
Jackson, come on. Elisa, come on.
Williams, it really made me think that we can defend any big game.
Whose
We're
mic's
the
now
tallest
on
team in
also?
the
Is
Big
it
Ten.
just Jackson?
But it's just funny to see everybody come out of the cracks and crevices that were like not fans, but now they are fans. So it's just funny to see everybody, oh yeah, go Mean Green, all of a sudden. So.
Personally, I welcome bandwagon fans. It's like welcome along to the team. Welcome to the bandwagon. We like having you here. Connor, do you disagree on that one?
Depending on the degree of how good a team is. So if you're jumping on the bandwagon for Gonzaga or Baylor, it's like, well, of course, you're just going to hop on the number one team.
What
But it's
other
different when
highlights
you
do
do it
you
for an
have?
underdog because it feels like no matter who they go up against, it's always going to be like,
Roll
"Oh, it's
celebration.
an underdog,
Get ready to
you got
music.
nothing to lose."
Bring in
And
VTR
so
one.
it's different when like it's a UNT versus a Baylor. So obviously I'm for it.
UNT is so fun to root for, so I would argue all aboard the bandwagon. Let's go. Let's take all the fans that want to root for us.
I agree. Now, so we mentioned a little bit about Zach Simmons and how he
Right,
was
whoever
playing
edited
Thomas
that
Bell were
never
able to
turned the
really
audio
fire
down.
up on Edey. Who else impressed you during the game?
Well, on offense, it was really a group effort. It all started with He had 24 points and 12 boards, a double-double from him, something that we don't always see, but he's always the leading scorer in points. Everything on offense starts with him driving to the lane, and that's exactly as it was in this game. But the thing that I think was so impressive with the offense was that there was that movement around Javian Hamlet that I talked about that they're needing to be. You know, we had guys like Dres McBride, who once again had a really nice shooting game. He was 4 of 6 from downtown, contributed 16 points. Thomas Bell, 16 points of his own. He's the one that got the offense kick-started in the first half, first 7 points of the game. He had some clutch shots in overtime as well. So it was a group effort, and that's how UNT wins games, when everybody contributes on offense. So it was nice to see.
I'm going to have to agree with you 100% on our Dres McBride. It's been so fun just literally watching his three-point percentage go up and up and up throughout the CUSA tournament, and obviously last game, just literally watching his percentage inch up more and more. But Jack, who did you like?
Okay.
I kind of just liked, I'm not going to pick a specific player, I'm going to pick the three-point shooting. You know, when you play a team that big, the three ball becomes really important, and when you shoot 40% from three, it's going to be hard to lose. So I think everybody stepped up with the three ball. It was super impressive to see that.
Well, speaking of the three ball, how about how UNT's defense made Purdue shoot the three?
Stop talking about defense.
They only
We only have
averaged
offense
20
highlights.
attempts each game coming into the UNT game. They shot 30 against us. So that's just a testament to how good that inside defense was with Thomas Bell and Zach Simmons in that game, because there was nothing inside. They had to force us to the outside and had the guards take the shots.
Chance, I forgot.
More
Jack?
offensive just presence from Zach Simmons. You're going to be golden for UNT. You just need him to score a little bit more buckets.
Saving up all this often for the
Victor, can you go to keys to the game?
Waiting all season, they were just kind of playing around with everyone. Like,
It's the
just
next
wait
piece
once
you
we
can
get to the
solve it.
tournament, we're going to start turning it on. They just didn't want to show people what they really had. They wanted to come out as a kind of like the thing of surprise. They're going to surprise Purdue with that element of surprise. So I was just so happy to see the UNT offense generate more
Get ready to go.
explosiveness,
I'm gonna go to
especially
camera
from
one.
the perimeter,
So
and not have to
switch.
rely on playing a 48 to 45 kind of game.
And it would have been easy for them to get away from what they're good at and not take the shot clock down within 10 seconds. Because like we said, Purdue was a huge team, and the fact that we were able to still run our offense exactly how we wanted to throughout the course of that game was really impressive to me.
And Caslin for just sticking to his game plan all night.
I think we've discussed this many, many times on this show, but I think it deserves a shout out every single time. Just how good of a coach Grant McCaslin is, how well respected he is by this school, by his team. You can just tell he's a leader of men. Jack, talk to me a little bit about Coach.
Yeah, you know, he's a great leader. He's turned this program into nothing to something now on a national stage. People know who we are now. I just really hope McCaslin, we can keep him at UNT for life, because he's definitely going to gain interest from other teams just based on how good of a coach he is.
It is definitely scary to think about the fact that he will probably receive offers. Hopefully we can keep him around. But we've heard our reaction to this game. Now we're going to go over to Hank Dickinson, who is the voice of the Mean Green Sports Network. His resume is limitless, but let's go and talk to Hank and see what he thinks of the game.
Yep.
Hank, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you. We're excited. We appreciate you taking the time. If you guys don't know, Hank is the color commentator for Mean Green Sports Network, so he's got a game to call in a little bit. But Hank, I want to ask you first, what does this win mean for not just the program, the athletics department, but the school as a whole?
Please come through.
Well, I've always said that nothing really brands your university more than an upset in the first round of the NCAA tournament, because all eyes are on you. I thought it was one of the biggest things in my 25 plus years of being associated with UNT that's ever happened. You know, the fake punt return against Arkansas a few years ago in football created a really big buzz for the brand. But when you win in the tournament, you get really 3 days of being in that news cycle and constant talk. And you know, it was one of those wins that wasn't a buzzer beater. It was a full effort. So
Can we shut it?
And obviously, we all know how
good this
good.
team is and how well coached they are. And, you know, hopefully tonight you advance.
Keep talking.
Yeah, hopefully we can get past Villanova. I know that we'll preview Villanova later in the show, but obviously we all know how good Javian Hamlet is, and
Can
it's
you go
great
back-
to see
can
him
you
get that
go to
national
key players, all
recognition.
three?
But what about the other guys on
Go
the
to that.
team? Because as we were discussing, it really was a full team effort.
Ready, VTR1 with UNT highlights?
Well,
Roll.
I mean, a player who was waiting to break out, in my opinion, before the game was Thomas Bell. He certainly did that.
Slowly
You know,
bring
we're
up
still
VTR1.
waiting for James
audio.
Reese to
Slowly.
kind of find that range from downtown. But the guy that you're looking at there a minute ago, Dres McBride, he has been
Lisa,
unbelievable in the month
slowly
of March.
bring up
And
VTR1.
it really started in Frisco, but he's playing well above his
A little
seasonal
lower.
average. And the fact that you have pandemic starts and stops means he's really kind of coming into his own right about now, which makes sense for a guy that transferred in. So, you know, those wing shooters have been huge. Tonight, I think it's got to be all about Zach Simmons and the inside-outside attack. Take some pressure off Hamlet and let Simmons do what he can do in the low post, which includes really good passing to the wing.
How much do you think of a factor
Back on
experience
camp.
level was? Obviously,
You ready with
four
celebration?
of our starting five are seniors, and Mardrez McBride is a junior. How big of a factor was that experience level?
Roll it.
Well, I think that was huge against a really young Purdue team, really
Love
talented freshman on that.
The audio is never going to be consistent, apparently. And all of our editors did it
North
differently.
Texas right now is the 24th most experienced team in all of college basketball. Simmons is the 30th most experienced player. We're making his 99th consecutive start tonight. So the experience and the ability to be unflappable when things kind of go the wrong way is so important to keeping your focus.
Now, I think we knew how good UNT was. Now it seems like everybody's catching on
You ready to do
that
a talent
we're a real team. But
Rolling
I
with
keep
the
thinking
highlights.
about teams like Western Kentucky, Louisiana Tech, other teams in
Pause.
Conference USA that honestly I think could have gone to the tournament and won games. With teams with conferences like the Big Ten having big upsets in that first round, do you think that there's an argument to be made that CUSA deserves more bids in the tournament?
I think it's really on the coaches in the league to schedule really good non-conference opponents because that's what builds your net ranking, the old RPI. Where Texas had
Can you put the
on
Hank
Monday
Dickinson
a
L3 back in?
top 64
You gotta find a way to
net
cover
ranking.
this, but they're not
They
talking about
belong in this
anything we
tournament.
have.
The other teams maybe didn't play the kind of all-cover
What's the coming up
schedule
L3 say?
Grant McCaslin will play. He's
Stay
done
in
it
the
2
bracket?
years in a row.
Stay in the
He
bracket.
did last
Got it.
year some really rugged non-conference games. What happens if you're well coached is you get better by playing the best, and then by the time you get to March,
God, he's
you're
not
really
lagging now,
that
thank
worried
God.
about who you play because you know you can tee it up with anybody.
I agree. That I
How
really
much time
enjoyed watching
now?
that West Virginia game in the first half of the season. And that coach's respect at the end of that game, I thought
Dude,
really said a lot.
audio
But Justin,
gods,
what did you have?
help.
Victory in terms of UNT sports moments all
What is that?
I would say it's
Why
top
did I-
three,
did I
if
hear
not
Zach?
number one. For me, we're in a football state, and there's been some great football moments.
There's nothing I
But
can do
this
now.
is the biggest stage. This is
Actually,
you're playing for a national title
Okay,
when you
might
make
as well.
this tournament. So to advance in a national championship tournament for North Texas, something that hadn't happened. That win was the first win over
Roll
a
highlights?
team in 50 years, and now you've got a chance to do it twice in 72 hours. Only the NCAA tournament gives you that opportunity, and again,
Great job,
I
Lucy.
just
Great
go
job.
back to the fact, think of the number of eyeballs that were on the Mean Green and how many people started to learn a little bit about the University of North Texas because of it. So I would have to say it's way, way up there, and there's a lot of argument to be said it's one of the best nights in the history of athletics here.
Jack?
Back on camp?
Hank, I was just going to ask, how long overdue is just this national or just attention from the
ready with the
media
celebration?
about UNT?
Do we have anything for Hamlet's dad?
Well, I think the thing you have to do, Jack, is when you get an opportunity, you have to deliver. So if it's,
Roll-
if it's overdue,
roll
it's overdue
anything.
because North Texas has kind of gotten to these plateaus before and then not had the opportunity to have, heroic performance like JV on hand. Has really North Texas on his shoulders.
Yeah, we have to do that every day.
He is embellishing.
Thank you guys so much.
Great attitude. But I think again, this can happen for football. I think we were pretty close a few years ago to really having a magical season. But it's to win, guys. It's really hard to win, and a well-coached team gives you a chance. And the kind of defense we play in basketball, it gives you a chance each night.
Mike's, Justin.
McBride and kind of the performance that he's been having recently. What does it say about the time, that he's stepped up in the biggest moment?
sweat Bianca,
He's
Michael Long.
the only
This
returning
is-
starter
this is
next year. So what does that say about him? The fact that he's stepping
Roll
up in the
McBride
biggest
now.
moments.
Audio slowly.
Well,
What are you talking about?
and I think he's playing with a level of confidence now that he hadn't probably had all year. He's just building on it. He scored 11 or more points in each of the last 5. So he comes into this on a real roll. Now, you're playing against one of the great coaches in the game in Jay Wright. He's going to find some ways to try to negate Hamlet and McBride. I think it's going to be really important that somebody else steps up tonight. And the two that I think have a chance to do that are Zach Simmons on the inside and James Reese on the wing. James has been hitting tough shots all year. 75% on his mid-range, but if he can get loose and
Who
get
does he
some
talk about
open
right now?
looks from 3, I really expect him to start knocking those shots down.
Let's just hold.
about brand earlier. What does a win like this do for the UNT basketball program, and where can it take them in the near future?
Especially with recruiting.
Well, yeah, I remember back in the day when we finally punched through back in 2006-07 under Johnny Jones. We ended up landing really good recruits after that would build, a really strong unit with Josh White, Tristan Thompson, George Dupla. But they got lured into North Texas based on their exposure to a trip to the NCAA tournament. I fully expect this coaching staff to really clean up in recruiting, and they've done a great job of finding some diamonds in the rough. Now I think they'll have a chance to go after 3, 4, 5-star players, and you can't understate how important the immediacy is of this being fresh in the mind of high school kids.
I remember last year when the 29-2010 Sun Belt champs came back for that reunion, and I can't wait to be back here in 10 years for this team's reunion because I really think this is a special team.
Coming up
But
graphic?
Hank, we really appreciate you being here with us. Come back and visit us soon.
And one, you're up. Put up the coming up graphic. Tell her to wrap it up.
Awesome. And
Take
we
off
will
the
be
sky.
back in just a few minutes. We're going to check out the
Ready, VTR2?
bracket. Let's talk about some upsets. Zach Fox has some upset news for us coming
Put in
up.
the coming up graphic. And roll. You didn't have
Sure,
your hands
I
back.
look cute now, but when
Right.
my owner lost his job,
So-
it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad,
Right.
I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, jumping, all back to my old self, and I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
I'll never forget the day our landlord called and said, read your lease. No pets allowed. My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in the shelter. But this big bull is ready for a new friend. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
Hands up.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars.
Well, don't you just want to take time off the sleep block?
But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows? Maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Victor, you can change the graphic. I want Zach Fox's lower third. No, we're not going to that first. 15 above. Stand by Sarah, stand by Sarah. All right, we're back. Cue Sarah.
Welcome back into
Ready,
Media
Zach
Game Day,
Fox.
And I'm your host, Sarah Baskin, alongside Jack, Justin, and Connor. Well, round one of the NCAA tournament is done, and we have seen nothing but upsets, including our very own North Texas over Purdue. So, on a little bit more about the history of upsets in the tournament, let's go over to Zach Fox. Zach?
Cue Zach.
Thanks, Sarah. Yep, upsets
Ready, VTR
left
1?
and right after the first round matchups, but most importantly, 13 seed versus 4 seed, aka UNT. There were only 2 13 seed versus 4 seed upsets, but hey, an upset's an upset. Now let's go ahead and dig back to the actual statistical side of things of the 13 seed upset.
Put it in.
It happens a little more than you think. There were 31 13 seed upsets since 1985 against 4 seeds since the tournament expanded in 1985. Now, there are 21 14 seed
This
teams
is great, guys.
that will beat the 3 seed teams. That's only happened 21 times. The all-time record between that is 21 wins and 119 losses. That puts the win percentage to 15%. Remember I said there's 31 teams where the 13 seed beat the 4 seed. I know those little numbers at you, but that means that it's 5.71% more chance, more likely, that the 13 seed will upset the 4 seed. And obviously we saw that happen on full display. Now, one of the most memorable games in NCAA history in March Madness tournaments is none other than a 13 seed taking out a 4 seed. Take a look at this. Ole Miss losing to Valparaiso back in 1998 with 2.5 seconds left in the game with a 2-point deficit.
God, he's great.
The Crusaders have one
Something?
final shot
Go
to
to it
tie
now.
or win. Bryce Drew's desperation 23
Timeout, come out.
to move on to the next round. That run is actually ranked number 3 all time in Cinderella stories and is now looked at as the shot, and for good reason. Now, in 28 of the last 35 seasons, there have been a total of between 10 and 16 upsets in a March Madness tournament. Now, that's pretty high, and the annual average is actually 12.2
Can you put
upsets.
the
Now,
Anchors
that's
L3 back in M1?
not just a 16 seed, taking out a 1 seed, not anything like that. They can be as little as an 8 and 9 seed.
Once
Just
you tell
upsets,
Hurry,
period.
go help
10 and
Thomas.
16. However, that number actually drops to as low as 4 back in 2007 and can rise to as high as 19 as we saw in 2014. And despite not having a March Madness tournament last year, we've obviously seen a lot more upsets as of late, and that's happening on full display once again. Obviously, after the first round, North Texas, one of the top teams to move on. You have ACU taking out Texas last night thanks to 2 clutch free throws. Oral Roberts University taking out a number 2 Ohio State. And then finally, Ohio taking out the defending champ. So my question to you is, which team is more, which team has more to prove? Would it be the number 5 Villanova team? Remember UNT taking on the 4 seed last, just a couple days ago. Now they're taking on a 5. But who has more to prove? Villanova. Your March Madness as of late has been great to higher seed teams, so do they have more to prove to take out the high seed team? Or is it like the usual side of things, and hey, UNT just made history just by simply going to the second round, do they have more?
Tell her, lower thirds.
Well, I guess that answer will be answered tonight, but we'll see how the Mean Green fare against the number 5 Villanova.
Back on Sarah.
Exactly. Listen, to answer your question, I think that Villanova has more to prove. You know, they were going into the tournament, they were a team that all of us talked about in our bracket challenge of whether or not we wanted to pick Winthrop over Villanova, and that was talked about a lot in the national media, that Winthrop could very easily upset them. They're missing some guys, but we'll get into previewing that matchup later on in the show. Let's talk about ACU over Texas. Jack, give me your gut reaction to that one.
It's really shocking how ACU ended up winning after shooting less than 30% from the field and shooting terrible from the 3-point line. It just shows how ACU's defense is just amazing, and their coach has really good dance.
Zach is not in the C block.
Connor, I want you to talk to me a little bit about Texas in the NCAA tournament. What's the deal?
That upset completely shocked me. When you look at Texas region and the way they've been playing recently, to me that just
I need you to hit
perfectly
cut.
for at least in Elite
Chance.
8 possible matchup against Alabama. But Abilene Christian played out of their minds, especially defensively. This was an ACU team that had been really good on defense all season. They kind of remind me of Texas Tech the way they play on defense. But it kind of shocked me with how bad, especially the Texas offense played, as good as their defense would play. If you had told me pre-game that ACU would score 53 points, I would have said, okay, Texas wins by about 20 because their average is right about 75 points per game. But they had a season high in turnovers. They had half as many turnovers as they did points, just about. So it was a sloppy performance from the Longhorns, and one that they are going to feel for a long time.
Hey Ben, you can in
They had over 20 turnovers, and in fact, the game ended on a turnover on that last second lob. It kind of reminded me of that Ole Miss game that Zach showed us, but it didn't end the way that they wanted it to. Justin, talk to me about the game.
Well, from a Texas perspective, I can't say I was surprised. Now, I said this on the show before the last UNT game. Texas is one of those teams that is solid on both sides of the ball, but they don't have a specific skill set that they excel at. So when things go south in games, like it did against ACU, they don't really have a skill that they can, go back on. They're not great from the 3-point range, so whenever they're down in games, that's not what they can revert to. So this is kind of what happened against ACU. They probably weren't expected it to be in a close game here, and they were, so I think it just kind of caught them off guard.
And it really sucks for Texas because they have Andrew Jones and they have the big man that's going to be in the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, Greg Brown. It's just, that's the best team I think they're going to have, maybe for a while, so it just sucks to lose like that.
I'm admittedly a big Longhorn fan. Connor knows that from years of doing these shows with me.
I thought you have a D-block.
I couldn't help but root for ACU in those final moments. They reminded me of us. in a moment where they had clearly dominated the game, clearly deserved to win that game and ended up winning it in the end. But the other huge upset of the first round was Oral Roberts over Ohio State. Jack, what was your reaction to that one?
It's just mind-boggling. I was up in the studio at K2 across from NTTV watching the game, and I was like, it's March, and so I'm just happy March Madness is back. But Ohio State, I had them going to at least the Elite Eight, so I just didn't see it coming.
We're going to definitely take a look at our brackets in the next block. See just how busted Jack's is from that pick. But Connor, what do you think?
Well, I'm in the same boat as Jack. I'm shocked, quite frankly. The 15/2, including that game, has only happened 9 times. So, I mean, it's not something you would go out and expect. I remember Joel Lenardi actually had Oral Roberts in that game. I remember thinking,
do you have a double-digit upsets graphic?
Hey, it's March Madness, just like Jack said, and I'm grateful to have it back. So I'm just kind of like, you know what? Let's just have at it. Let's enjoy the tournament. And I know that these college basketball players really enjoy being back, and obviously they want to win. But it's just great after what last year brought to us. It's just great to have college basketball brought for the American public. That's something else I want to talk about.
Stop playing the fight song, Ben. You're going to kill me.
The day after, 24 hours later, one of the better players for Ohio State was having death threats sent to him. Now, this is just not cool. If you want to blame yourself for making a pick, for not picking Oral Roberts in that game, you can blame yourself for not having a perfect bracket. But don't go out and blame someone else who's fighting a lot more adversity than you are and is working their butt off on and off the court in the classroom. That's not cool, and that needs to stop.
I agree. I think it can be easy to think of not think athletes, particularly student athletes, as people and students.
Cool.
I think it's completely. I agree with you totally, Connor. I thought it was totally inappropriate, the reaction that they were getting. But I do want to talk about a couple other Texas teams. In that first round,
go back to state of Texas.
Every single Texas team, except for Texas and Texas Southern, but they won their first 4 matchup. Every Texas team won. We thought Houston was a pretender. Baylor came out. Justin, talk to me about those Texas teams.
Well, I think Baylor looks like the clear national champion right now in my book. I mean, they've just perfected that small ball lineup. They can meet you in so many different ways. I love what Baylor still brings to the table. You mentioned Houston. I still think they're a pretender. You know, I know Connor in his bracket has them losing to Rutgers in the next round. They play some tough teams here down the stretch of the down the stretch of the tournament, and if they keep advancing, that's going to surprise me because they haven't seen these big levels of competition all season long. So I still think Houston's a pretender.
I don't know if I agree with you fully that they're a pretender. I think they're definitely a team to watch. I can't remember exactly how far I had them going, but I don't think it was totally far. But we can't end this block without talking about Gonzaga and that ridiculously dominating win last night. Jack, talk to me about that one.
Yeah, it just goes to show that, like Justin said, Baylor. It just shows that they just took care of business and they're on to the next round. So it just shows that I think Gonzaga and Baylor are just the top 2 teams, and anybody else is not even close.
Okay,
so
guys,
Victor,
what do you guys think was the best matchup of the first round?
On camp?
Other than UNT Purdue, obviously.
How about Villanova Winthrop? I mean, that was an interesting game. Not only because we're playing the winner, but that was an interesting one because, like you said, a lot of people have picked Winthrop coming into that game.
Now my question is, where is your zoomable 32 bracket?
And Villanova pretty much did just whatever they wanted to them. But I thought that was an interesting game in the first round, and it was closer than I think the score indicated.
I think the first game, Virginia Tech versus Florida, that first game in March Madness this year,
Virginia Tech
went to overtime, hit a 3 to send it to overtime. It was super exciting. It was like the first game, so it's fun.
But UCSB and Creighton. I mean, UCSB was literally that close to going to the next round. If that guy makes a little floater there at the end, there's about 1 second left, and as you saw with Texas last night, you can't really do much with 1 second left in the clock. But it literally went halfway down and it came out. So it's a classic 5-12 game, classic March Madness game that had multiple runs where teams would go on 6-9-0 runs, making threes. A team would be up by 10. The next thing you know, it'd be a 2-point game. Classic March Madness.
I could not agree more. Listen, I'm just happy that March Madness is back, and with March Madness comes bracket stress. A lot of our brackets are busted. We're going to take a look and see how well we're doing.
Go to the coming up graphic. Ready, VTR 1, 2, and 3, 2, 1. Roll VTR 2.
It started with the original care package and millions more like it, passed from hand to hand across land and sea to help survivors in the aftermath of war. As we grew, We found better ways to help those in need. Ways to make a real difference. Not just today, but tomorrow as well. Be the difference in people's lives. Help deliver lasting change. With Care Team.
Hey, Dad.
See you, buddy.
2, 3.
And we'll see you later. Okay, so, did you have a minute for this break? All right, Victor, what I need you to do...
Dad?
Are you okay?
So I need you to put up...
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here.
I need you to put, listen for my call, okay?
AARP.org/caregiving.
2 minutes till bump. All right, you ready, Victor? Ready. Look at your bracket. Oh, you want Justin's bracket? I don't.
Okay, so we drowned the fire, stirred it, drowned it again, and now just feel if it's cold.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Oh my god.
Smokey just gave me a bear hug.
I know. I already posted it.
Your voice, your vote. In our democracy, they matter and make our community and our country stronger.
50 seconds, 50 seconds.
So make yours count. Get registered.
All right.
Learn the issues.
I need, just be
know
sure
the
you know
candidates,
everything has to be
and
little as
vote
block.
by or on November 3rd. Visit vote411.org
right,
for registration and election information. This message is furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Making is in essence telling a story. Every time I make something, I'm telling a story. When a kid gets their hands on the board and learns that they can make their fantasy play, that they can make their reality, that's power. As far as I'm concerned, everyone should feel that kind of power. So if there's something that interests you, go figure out how to do it. Go tell your own story. There it is. I want to know why you make it.
Share your own Why
Ready,
I
camera
Make
one?
story today. Visit whyimake.org.
And Sarah's up. Cue Sarah.
Welcome back to Mean Green Game Day. I'm your host, Sarah Baskin, alongside Jack, Connor, and Justin. Fellas, I know a lot of us picked Ohio State. I know a lot of us
going
picked Texas.
first.
A lot of our brackets are busted. Justin, where do you stand right now?
Well, I am completely busted, and the first place that I went wrong was with San Diego State. Now, I really like this team.
You got Justin's in?
Because I thought they were playing some of their best basketball of the season right at the tail end. I think they had won 18 out of their last 19 games.
I need you to change
or something
M1
crazy like
to,
that. They were
bracket
red
busting
hot.
or something.
And I
Some
think the
bracket
problem was
L3.
they just ran into a Syracuse team that was a little bit red hotter. And you got to credit Syracuse defense because that was one of the best showings I've ever seen from a defense. They held San Diego State to 36% from the field and 28% from the three-point line, which is both way lower than San Diego State has been all season long. Now, the second place that I went wrong is with Ohio State, and I think we're all going to have that one. Now, Ohio State is known for playing down to the competition, but I didn't think that it was going to be this bad, especially not in the first round. I thought, in fact, the bracket was actually favorable to the Buckeyes to get to the Elite Eight, but as we see, it didn't turn out that way at all. Now, I was right about Oregon State beating Tennessee on the show because Tennessee was playing a lot of up and down
Oregon State,
basketball all
so
season
the
in
Midwest.
SEC, and really the question going into that game was which Tennessee team was going to show up, and it turned out to be the one that could beat Oregon State. Now, Oregon State was a team that really heated up in the Pac-12 tournament, so that was a common upset pick over an up and down volunteer team. So I did luck out and get that one correct in the 12-5 matchups. Now, I was also right about Ohio over Virginia. We talked about Virginia a little bit before. They had a lot of question marks coming into the tournament, and I thought Ohio was a really dangerous team. They're a team that live and die by the three ball, and they had it going in this game, and Jason Preston went off for them, and that was an awesome showing as well. That was one of the only upsets that actually happened that was predicted on a national level consistently.
Back wide.
Also, Florida State almost completely busted by my Final Four when they almost lost to UNC Greensboro. That's one of the ones that I kind of went out on a limb on, was picking them to the Final Four. But I still like their trio and their backcourt. They have a lot of different ways
Great
they
job,
can beat
Victor.
you.
You did awesome.
It was worrisome to see them struggling against UNC Greensboro, but
Ready,
you know, I
go
kind
wide?
of hope that maybe they were just looking over their first round opponent and that they'll turn it up here. But San Diego State and Ohio State were really the two ones that completely busted my bracket.
Okay, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that pick of Illinois. You had them going to your championship round, and they lost to Loyola Chicago earlier
Leave
today.
Justin up.
What happened there?
Well, I think we all underestimated the Loyola Chicago defense. Now they're leading the nation in scoring defense on a per game basis, and we thought that was maybe just due to the fact that their conference is a little bit weaker, but that turned out to not be the case at all. Their defense really flies around, and they play variations of zone and man, and it gave Illinois a lot of trouble. They shut down Iota Shunu today, and that was the biggest key to stopping the Illini. They were double teaming him. They stole the ball from him a lot. They were just making it a nightmare for him.
Now, Connor, I know a lot of us really liked Illinois going in, but we also really liked Loyola Chicago, and I forget who your pick was. Who did you pick for that game?
I picked Georgia Tech to beat Loyola in the first round, so I didn't even have Loyola making it to the next round.
So busted.
Well, busted to a degree, but with Illinois more so than Loyola. I have a lot more red than I do green right now with my bracket. Specifically with the Texas Longhorns.
Go up to the Longhorns.
Again, like I said
so that's
a couple minutes ago, I'm just shocked that Texas lost that game. I had them going to the Final Four. So yeah, my bracket has been busted. And it was even kind of busted before then with Ohio State.
Go wide.
We were kind of all offset with that loss essentially because everybody lost that game. So everyone's bracket has been busted, especially today with Illinois losing, and then West Virginia just lost to Syracuse about 30 minutes ago. So everybody's bracket's been busted. Here is something to keep an eye out. I want to talk a little bit about with the games that I've won, and here's where I could potentially make a run, especially in the pool that I'm in right now. If LSU tomorrow beats Michigan, and we do see that 8 seed beat a 1 seed, we saw it today with Loyola, we could see it tomorrow with LSU. LSU is playing their best basketball of the season. Michigan is playing their worst basketball of the season. Justin brought up earlier about that Oregon State-Tennessee matchup. This is a similar matchup, except on a higher degree. So LSU is a possible upset watch. If LSU happens to win that game, that could help my bracket a lot. Florida State is another team that I have going very far. I have them going to the Elite Eight. And then, of course, I had Texas beating them. But obviously, again, my bracket has been busted, especially for that region. Now, moving forward, here's something if you're into all the money and the betting, and you're picking them on ESPN, you get 320 points. 320 points per round. Divide that by the amount of games. That's how many points you get per win. That means if you have the champion correct, you earn 320 points with the championship alone. So right now, I have Baylor winning the national championship. So as long as my bracket doesn't continue to get busted with the other regions and games, I have a chance to
pick a winner.
And you mentioned that pool that all of us are in, and it's worth noting that the number one guy in our pool did pick Illinois, so his max score went down by 1,000 today. So all of us in this room have a chance in that pool. But Jack, did you pick North Texas to win?
I don't think I did. Yeah, I didn't pick North Texas to win. I guess I had no faith in them, but hey, I mean, Connor, your bracket's going to be even more busted when they beat Baylor. So in the Sweet 16. So I'm just kidding. But yeah, my bracket it started out really bad. I mean, Florida, Virginia Tech. I picked the first game wrong, so I'm just like, I'm done with March Madness. I'm rooting. I don't even care if the underdogs win. It's cool. So Loyola, they're a good team. They beat Illinois. I don't know how. I don't think they have enough offensive firepower to beat Illinois, but their defense really showed. And so I'm done with March Madness, but I'm just here in North Texas.
If UNT busts my bracket like they already kind of have, then I will be fine. That's the only way I'm going to be okay. And that's the only way I'm going to accept a Baylor loss in the tournament, is that they lose to UNT. That's it. Because I'm either pulling for Baylor to win the national championship or for UNT to make some kind of historic.
Victor, get ready to go to big wins.
It's also worth noting that Connor Hibbett is the only one in this room that picked UNT to win the CUSA tournament. So we should really listen to his word right now because he was the only one that nailed it. But you mentioned a potential UNT-Baylor matchup. I personally had UNT going to the Sweet 16 round and meeting up with Baylor, and that was sort of where I had them ending. how good are our chances against Baylor, looking ahead, kind of past Villanova,
Get ready to roll
how good
Baylor
are our
highlights?
chances if we made it there?
Well, first I just want to say not even about the game. If we get to that point and if we beat Baylor, I'm climbing up a light pole at UNT, and I hope it's like at Tech when they went to the Final Four that one year. The campus is crowded. It's a big party. So I hope we beat Baylor for those reasons, but I'm sure Connor has and Justin have a better idea on that.
Well, I think to beat Baylor, you would have to probably have your best offensive game that you've ever had. I don't think you can get in a low-scoring game with Baylor because it just doesn't happen with them. They have too many good scorers. So I think, it would probably be a higher-scoring game, and I would just have to favor Baylor, in higher-scoring games. UNT is usually the more defensive team and playing lower-scoring games. So this one would be really, really, really tough.
The one thing I'll say about UNT, and Justin brought this up when we were watching against Purdue, they are disciplined and they never fold. No matter what the score is, no matter what time of the game is, they still play UNT basketball. So I know, regardless of what the score is against, if we happen to beat Villanova, play against Baylor in
what
the
other
Sweet
graphics
16,
do you have?
I don't care what the score is at any point in the game, we are going to continue to play UNT basketball. We won't get rattled. Here's the problem when I see it in that matchup. We lost to UAB a couple of weeks ago. UAB is a small ball team. Baylor is another small ball team that plays with multiple guards, and they can play even offensively and defensively. So that the way we match up does scare me a little bit.
We'll put it in.
I'm going to actually disagree with you, but agree with you at the same time. I think that it was important for us to lose those 2 games against UAB. I think that was really a wake-up call for us. Not that we were asleep at all as a team, but I really think that it showed them how bad they wanted it, the holes in their game and what they needed to clean up. And they went into that tournament just completely laser-focused. And I love what you said about how they just never quit. Javion Hamlet was quoted in a lot of interviews after that win to Purdue about how gritty they were and how that's what they want to be known for, is being that gritty team. But of all of the upsets from the first round, UNT included, does UNT have the best chance to move forward to the Sweet 16 round, or who is that team?
I think it's UNT. I mean, I think you're catching a Villanova team that we're going to preview here in a little bit, but they're missing one of their best players. And I don't think a lot of the Cinderellas across the board that are still remaining could say that. So you're going against a team that's going to be questioning some things on both sides of the ball without their best player. So I think that's a good pick, having UNT the most likely to go farther.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And this is what Justin said a couple shows ago. It's our defense. It's good enough to beat anybody. And if we have that offense we did against Purdue, I think we can take anybody. So it's just about consistency.
I'm going to have to go back to what Hank was saying earlier in the show about how we really need Zach Simmons to have an offensive game. I think all of us were really, that was our biggest worry going into Purdue with Zach Edey, because he's just so big. But Zach Simmons absolutely held his own against him. But I agree, we do need him to have a really good offensive game moving forward. Connor, is UNT the best upset to go forward?
Definitely so. I mean, a lot of this had Winthrop beating Villanova. And if we have Winthrop winning that game, I'm sure we're going to have the same thoughts about UNT pulling off that upset. And when I look at Villanova, of course, we should probably say this more for the next block, but when I look at Villanova, they have a lot of issues with their team right now, specifically their guard play, and that's where UNT will slide against them.
We are definitely going to preview that Villanova game coming up next after the break.
Bring up
We're
coming
going to
up
talk about
graphic.
key players, what do we think it'll take to win, and then we'll make our final pick if we can actually win that game. Stick around.
And roll. Sarah's gonna go fast.
I can't even say I'm with the IRS.
Right.
If you owe back taxes,
2
and
minutes
if you
to
don't pay
bump.
today, you're going
That
to
means
jail.
we're gonna be just a little
You can
over
fix this
time.
by sending cash.
We're just a hair over
Did
time.
you actually believe me?
We're good. All right, what do we got going on?
Well, last year, Americans paid $100 million to guys like me. 1 in 6 people were scared.
Great.
Can you believe it? Well, you shouldn't.
All right,
I
so
just
we
made
go to
that up
Do
too.
you have Villanova versus Waycraft?
You are a little gullible.
Many medicines used to treat colds and flu contain acetaminophen, a pain reliever and fever reducer found in hundreds of over-the-counter and prescription medicines. But taking too much or more than one medication containing acetaminophen per day can damage your liver. So always read the label and don't take acetaminophen if you drink 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day. To learn more, visit fda.gov/OTC pain info. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration.
Your voice, your vote. In our democracy, they matter and make our community and our country stronger. So make yours count. Get registered, learn the issues, know the candidates, and vote by or on November 3rd. Visit vote411.org for registration and election information. This message is furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Good job, Seth. I dropped it. Hey, future me, watch this.
Oh my god. Side panel ready?
Sounds good. And just leave it right there. I'll cue you on the side panel.
Okay.
Ready, camera one. Stand by, Sarah. And 3, 2, 1. Bump it and cue Sarah. Mike, Sarah.
I know I speak for these three guys when I say it's an absolute honor and pleasure to be UNT students at this time in history.
Fine.
We cannot wait for this
I'm gonna have to roll with the player
later
highlights
this
a lot.
evening. Before we get into previewing this game, I want to talk a little bit about Villanova Winthrop because, like I mentioned earlier, they were really that was a matchup that a lot of us were unsure about. Some of us picked Winthrop to move forward. What really happened in that game, Jack?
It just started with the 3-ball. I think they shot 30% from 3, and that Villanova does a lot better than that. So I think Winthrop really did a good job handling Villanova's 3-point shot. And then another stat was that they had 8 blocks, and a team that has 40 blocks over the whole regular season. So, and Thomas Bell has 32. That's a little sneak peek, but so it's like they're not the best at defending in the paint, but they did a good job against Winthrop.
What do you think, Justin?
Yeah, well, I think it's evident, first of all, that they're still kind of trying to figure things out without Colin Gillespie. He was their leader on and off the floor, and he's pretty much our Javion Hamlet. He's their do-it-all guy, and he's the guy that their offense starts with. So it was evident at some points where they just seemed confused and maybe lost without him. But the thing that they did really well in this game was they played from in front. So it kind of allowed them to figure out the offensive game as they went along throughout the course of this game. And I mentioned Winthrop being a streaky team. Villanova held them to 36% from the field overall in this game, which was really impressive from them. And then Villanova countered with a very balanced attack on offense. Jeremiah Robinson-Earl led the way. He had a double-double, 22 points. He's going to be the big man that we're going to have to go against. He's kind of like their Travion Williams. Thomas Bell's going to have his work cut out for him. He's a 6'9" guy, similar to Travion Williams, 6'10" last week.
All right, so, ready to roll highlights?
That's going to be one of the matchups here that I'm looking for. They had four starters in double digits in that game, along with 15 bench points. So the Villanova offense is really about balance and efficiency, much like UNT's is going to have to be to win this game.
So you mentioned a couple key players for this game moving forward. Who do you think is going to be the most important piece for UNT?
I think it's going to be Thomas Bell. Their leading scorer is Jeremiah Robinson.
Roll Thomas Bell highlights.
Pretty much all of his points come
Thomas
from
Bell
inside
highlights
the paint.
in.
Kind of reminds me of Travion
fine.
Williams.
We're going to come
Purdue
out
in a lot of ways. He's primarily a post player. He's going to spend all of his time in the post, and he's a physical rebounder. So Thomas Bell, once again, our best defensive player is going to be going against their best offensive player. And a guard that I'm looking for Villanova to maybe have a big game is Justin Moore.
Go to Justin Moore.
He's going to have to handle a lot of the weight now without Colin Gillespie in, and he's been doing a really nice job so far of picking up some of the weight scoring-wise without Gillespie.
And you mentioned Thomas Bell. I want to give credit to
Go back
Jack.
to Thomas Bell.
Jack was talking about Thomas Bell, a few weeks ago, and how important he is to this team and what a dream he is to have on the team. Jack, you want to follow that up with anything?
Yeah, I just think him being able to shoot a 3-ball and his defense is just, he's so efficient, and it's just something that you have to have. And I'm pretty sure every college would want them on their team. But to pull up my key player, I think McBride's got to get you those 3 balls tonight.
Great job.
At least 2 or 3. So I think if you have McBride on,
Roll
I think
McBride.
it's a good chance of UNT pulling this one out.
And I like that because this is a totally different offense when McBride and when James Reese are on their game.
Go to James Reese.
Because when Javion Hamlet drives to the lane, if those guys aren't on fire, the guards can just focus in on Javion Hamlet. So when these guys are firing well from the outside, it totally opens up everything else that this offense has in store. So that's an important player, Dres McBride, coming into this game for sure.
What do you think, Connor?
Well, kind of like what Hank said, I'm looking for Zachary Simmons.
Zach Simmons?
Pretty big game. I'm going to anticipate Villanova to anticipate to come out and make sure that the guards don't beat you for UNT. So I'm looking at around the lower post for us to have a big game.
Lisa.
And I don't know why, but I've got this feeling that Zach Simmons is just going to go off tonight. I just got this feeling he's the most experienced player on our roster. I just got this feeling he's scoring in the double digits, and he's going to be the player of the game.
coming
I'm
out.
writing it down right now, Connor. Zach Simmons, player of the game. We will remember it. If it's accurate, we will give you full credit. But, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Javian Hamlet a little bit.
Javian Hamlet?
What does Javian Hamlet need to do to carry this team to a
Leave this
win?
graphic up for a second.
How about shoot some more floaters? He's first in the country. We saw the statistic.
Roll Hamlet.
He makes like in the high 80s or
Music
low
up.
90s with floaters. That's insane. And what we see today, it feels like today's basketball is either a three-pointer or a layup or dunk. There's no in-between game. That's what separates Javian Hamlet from most guards, college or in the NBA. He has that mid-range game, and that's what really frustrates a defense, because if you play man against him, he can come around you, get a layup. If you play zone against him, he's going to attack the middle of the floor and shoot that 10, 12, 15-foot mid-range jump shot. So I like what Hamlet brings, and I like what UNT has done the last couple of games, utilizing their guard play.
Miss a chance.
My real gut reaction player to watch for this game is going to be James Reese.
James Reese?
Just watching these tournament games, watching him line up for a three-point shot, you just have this gut feeling like he's going to make it almost all of the time. We really need to see that from him moving forward for tonight. I'm really going to agree with what Hank said about that one. But Justin, we talked about UNT players to the game. Talked about some key players. You brought up a couple Villanova players. Talk to me about Colin Gillespie. How big of a hole is that in this Villanova team?
Well, like I said, he's basically their Javian Hamlet. Everything they did on offense pretty much this season started with him. And if you look at the stats, their offense was so much better points-wise with Gillespie in the lineup than without him. He's their heart and soul, and losing him is really hard to go and play without him in the tournament.
Yeah, and him being a senior, you know how seniors affect us at UNT. He is Mr. Villanova, so it just really sucks for him not to be able to play.
Who else are you guys as Villanova players to watch? I know you mentioned Jeremiah Robinson-Earl.
Yeah, he's going to be going against Thomas Bell. A 6'9" guy, kind of like Trevian Williams, very physical in the paint. So Thomas Bell's going to have his work cut out for him going against him.
Yeah, what about Justin Moore?
Well, like I said, he's going to have a ton of weight put on him without Colin Gillespie. It's how it's been over the past few games. But he's been scoring double-digit points. He's been high in assists. I think he leads the team in assists behind Colin Gillespie. So I mean, he's going to have a lot more of the weight on him, and we're just kind of waiting to see how he plays against an elite defense now with an increased role.
Yeah, and I really like this matchup between Villanova and UNT. I think they're both just slow-paced teams, and they both fit each other very well. So I think it's just going to be just a bogged down defensive game.
Yeah, you're exactly right about that. And there's a lot of similarities between Purdue and Villanova for me. And when you watch them play, it just seems like Purdue maybe has the bigger big men, while Villanova has the better guard play around them. And like Jack said, it's going to be a slow-paced game. Villanova is 331st in pace, and we're 350th out of 357 D1 teams. So this is going to be a low-paced and low-scoring game once again. In this game against Villanova, because they're low pace, they focus on defense just like we do. I think we match up very well with them.
On and off the court, there's similarities with the coaches.
Can you roll any of the Purdue players' highlights
and Jay Wright are
Villanova?
Two of the best coaches
I don't care.
in college basketball.
Just roll something.
And these two coaches, perhaps, are some of the better program builders right now in the NCAA. So I think this is going to be a terrific matchup on and off the court.
I completely agree, but what do you guys think are really the keys? Like, what is it going to take for UNT to win this game?
So I think with Villanova, like I said a little bit earlier, during the regular season they only had 40 blocks. Thomas Bell by himself, that's 32. So I think with Purdue, they have the big man. We had to really focus on the three ball and make that, but now the paint's going to be open, no rim protection. I think we're going to see Zach Simmons score and Hamlet get to the rim easy. So it's going to be more of an open paint for us this game.
How about sticking to your identity as a key? Connor mentioned it. No matter what Purdue threw at us, we were going to still play that slow-paced offense and still do what UNT does best, no matter what the score is of this game. And even if we fall behind against Villanova, we're still going to go slow-paced because that's just our style of offense. So I want to see us just sticking to this identity no matter what the score is of this game, because I think we'll have success, especially on the defensive side. If we're defensive-minded first and we shut that down, then it's going to open up a lot of things for us to do on the offensive side, kind of like it did against Purdue.
How much do you guys think that tournament experience really plays into this? Because Villanova is one of the most experienced teams in this tournament. Connor, what do you think?
When you look at Villanova, what they've done the last few years, of course not last year, but 2 years ago, they got upset by Purdue. But the year before that, they won the national championship. And again, I'm going to say this again, I'm afraid of Jay Wright, their head coach. He's one of the best coaches in the country, but I think we have one of the best coaches in the country. So you look at the experience for this specific season, and I look at UNT and their experience versus Villanova and theirs, we have the advantage in that. You heard Hank bring it up, we're one of the few most experienced teams in the country. We knew that coming in this year. We know what we were capable of. We were built for this stage of college basketball, and I think we can pull it off.
You guys have a final score?
Okay, I'll go 65-63, UNT.
I was going to say something like that. 70-65 UNT. I think we match up fine with them.
I'll go 67-66 UNT.
I don't know what's inside Jack's brain and why it's the exact same as mine, but I was going to say the same thing, 67-66. I think this is going to be a close game. Guys, I don't know about you. I cannot handle another overtime.
Do you have like
I can't handle a 1 point game. I can't do it again.
Go to that.
Like is this what it feels like when the team you root for is actually good? Because I haven't really experienced this living in Dallas. So.
No, I've never experienced it.
They might go out.
Never experienced it either. But what else is it going to take to win this game, you guys think? And what happens moving forward?
Well, I think another key to the game is you're going to have to win your one-on-one matchups. I talked about how we double team Travion Williams last week. It's not going to really be able to be that way against Jeremiah Robinson Earl because, like I said, Villanova has a ton of different guys that can beat you on the outside, whereas Purdue really didn't have elite guard play. So it's going to be solo efforts pretty much across the board on defense. So if you win your one-on-one matchups, you'll get the team win.
I think momentum is a real thing, and UNT's hot right now, so I think it's going to carry out that way. And momentum is such a big deal.
Like, don't make it too
Jack,
long.
you know I'm 100% with you on momentum. We talk about that a lot off air. How much momentum and experience really matters moving forward. What do you think, Connor?
Basketball is a game of runs. We've seen it all tournament long. When you're confident your team just hit a few shots in a row, here comes the other team. They'll make a couple shots, force a turnover, next thing you know it, the momentum is switched. Like you said, Jack, momentum. And momentum is key in every sport, but in basketball, it just seems to be a more fluid situation. I just want to say, as a UNT student, this is an unbelievable thing for me, an experience. If I had to repeat my life 10, 12, 15 more times, it would never happen again. This exact story would never happen again. The fact that I'm getting to experience this at a college like a UNT versus, it's different if you're going to North Carolina Duke where you expect to make the championship run every single season. But this is such a surreal moment for me as a student. I am just so glad that I get to be on air talking about UNT in March Madness. This is terrific.
And I would even take that a step further. I don't think it couldn't have happened in a better year. 2021, this has been a crazy year, and I think this team's success has really given us something to watch and some hope in some weird times. So I would say that this year, in particular, has made this experience even so much better for the Mean Green.
I completely agree, and I'm actually a graduate student now, and I just feel lucky that to still be around here experiencing it, and to really be experiencing it with you guys. We've been talking a lot about UNC basketball all year. It's been an absolute amazing ride. Just watching them, and we just want to wish them the best luck moving forward, and hopefully they pull out a win tonight. We can't wait to see. Well, we just want to thank you all so much for joining us for tonight's show. Hopefully we'll see you again one more time, at least one more time this season. But until then, you can find us on Twitter at GameDay or on YouTube at NTTV Sports. See you next time.
And 3, 2, 1, roll VTR 2. Ready, Black? Ready to end it, Ben? It's gonna be quick. Get ready to fade VTR 2 out. We're going to fade it out with the basketball. And 3, 2, 1, dissolve. Punch it off.